Okay, today we're gonna do something kind of different.
But kind of the same.
No, just something totally different. Today, we're gonna build a cold plunge.
What? What are you talking about, man?
I'm always injured, and I started looking at ways to hack my health. Turns out Wim Hof is onto something.
I am the Iceman!
My first step when I started getting interested in it was to dive into the science. The two main things that came up were, one, is that it's really great for the whole dopamine kick. I mean, you know dopamine, it's why we're all addicted to our phones. Probably why we mountain bike. It's kind of like the feel-good neurotransmitter.
Dopamines.
Going into a cold plunge, it spikes your dopamine the same level, well actually more than smoking. It almost spikes dopamine as much as doing cocaine. Don't do drugs, kids. Problem with cocaine, well, one of the problems with cocaine, the dopamine problem with cocaine is it spikes your dopamine 2.5 times base level, but then it very quickly drops down below baseline. The same with smoking. It goes up 2 times baseline, but quickly falls off below. The thing with cold plunging is it spikes up to 2.5 times, but then over the next few hours, it slowly reduces down to baseline. So it doesn't actually drop below, and it gives you a sustained kick of that feel-good neurotransmitter.
Amen. Amen.
I started cold plunging, and I can say, I really noticed that dopamine effect. When I got out for the next couple hours, I felt amazing. And that dopamine spike doesn't go away. You don't get used to cold plunging. It always sucks when you get in. I was in the pool! And you always get a high when you get out. The other thing I was really interested in is its effects on inflammation. I'm always beating up my body. I've had so many surgeries, and I noticed that after I started going in this cold plunge, that my inflammation, general aches and pains, just started coming down a little bit. So I went on the internet, and there's this whole group. There's this guy, what's his name? I'm gonna put the name on the screen because I can't remember his name. He does the DIY cold plunge. He has a website, a Facebook group. So I took what I learned from him, plus some members, and I put together kind of a set of plans to build my own plunge. Let's go take a look, and let's build ourselves a cold plunge.
This is the Grizzly 400. You could go with a cheaper Rubbermaid or a metal trough, but this one comes insulated and already has a top. It's not cheap. It comes in at $900 or $1,000 US. If you want to do one of the cheaper options, you can check out DIY Cold Plunge to see how to go about all the insulation process. The Grizzly comes in at about 100 gallons, which will fit just about any size body. It also has a locking mechanism on the top so that when you put it up and get in, it won't fall back on top of you. No matter what container you choose, the plumbing's all the same. So let's take a look at all the parts we need to plumb this sucker up.
Once you have your container ready to go, the first step is to drill some holes for the water inflow and outflow. And with that, you're gonna need to add some bulkheads. Now, if you're using a Rubbermaid or a metal trough, most bulkheads are long enough to fill the hole. But if you're using a Grizzly, the walls are pretty thick and you're gonna need to make sure your bulkhead is long enough. If you go with a Grizzly, it comes with a drain hole and a screw-in plug. The nice thing is you can buy an accessory that has a hose attachment for that plug. What that does, it allows you to either have a hose attachment for a separate drain, or you can do what I did and just drill one hole and use one bulkhead and use that hose attachment on the drain plug for the water outflow into the plumbing system. To prevent debris from getting into the plumbing system, I ended up buying a mesh sink strainer and glued it into the attachment. For my project, I decided to go the easy route. I went with flexible rubber hosing and barbed plastic hose attachments. I could have gone the PVC route, but that requires a lot more accuracy and you need to use cements and glues. And I just wanted to make things easy and editable in case I screwed up. For these plastic barbed hose attachments, you can just get them down at your hardware store, Home Depot, Rona, Lowe's, and they just come in bins where you can pick them out individually. Okay, let's get into the build. I started with a 3/4 inch hose attachment and ran that immediately into a T. On one side of the T, I added a tap for the drain, and with the other side, I ran it into the pump. From the pump, I go to the filter. A lot of people will add ozone at this step, but I wanted to save that after the chiller as the last step before sending the water back into the tank. From the filter, the water gets sent to the water chiller to get cooled. Once cooled, the final step is to sanitize the water with the ozone generator. Now the ozone system works by using suction to suck in the ozone from the generator through the Venturi injector. The Venturi injector squeezes the water down to close to 1/4 inch. So to keep the flow of the overall system going, we use a bypass of 1/2 inch to make sure we get the proper throughput. The last step is to connect that 1/2 inch bypass to the sanitized water out of the Venturi injector and send that back through the bulkhead into the container. I'll put links in the description down below for as many of the parts as I can that I used, but there are all kinds of options for the parts that you can find out there that'll work with this build. Okay, the first thing we need to do is drill a hole in the container for the bulkhead. I ended up getting a hole saw kit from my hardware store. This one's by Mastercraft. There's all different kinds of ones out there. You can also go on Amazon or some of the online stores and get just a single one for the exact size you need. I decided to get a kit. I might need them later on, and it actually wasn't that much more expensive than just getting the one single one I needed. Now with the hole saw, and this may be obvious to some of you, I'm a bit of a rookie, but you do need a special attachment for it to fit your drill. Okay, so this is what my kit looks like. There's a bunch of different sizes in it. For this particular bulkhead, I need about 1.5 inch hole. If you're ordering just a single one, you can actually check and see the specs of your bulkhead to order the right size. If you have a kit like this, you also can just eyeball it and tell which is the right one. This is the adapter I was talking about. You can see how it just kind of screws on. There's a few different kinds of adapters out there. You just have to make sure you get the right one for your hole saw. Okay, with that, let's go drill ourselves a hole.
The first thing to do is to drill a pilot hole so we can guide the hole saw in from both sides. That goes through pretty easy. Okay, so I'll just change out this bit. Okay, so now we have the hole saw put on. So we'll start from this side and then we'll finish it off on the other. Okay, that's one side. Now we're just gonna come through, finish it off on the other. There we go. Now we'll just clean that up and get our bulkhead put in. Okay, here's the bulkhead. It has a rubber gasket that goes on the inside of the container. It's got a reverse screw on it, so you actually go left to tight it instead of right. Let's get that put in. Get that nice and tight. Perfect. And that's what it looks like on the inside. Now we're ready to plumb it up.
Okay, so this is the 3/4 inch rubber hose that we're going to use to attach all of the components. What I thought we'd do is start by taking a look at the setup for the water output. This is the accessory that has the hose attachment for the Grizzly. And what we're going to do is we're going to attach a T out of it that allows us to send water out to drain through a hose if we want to clean out the container, or head into the pump to go through the filtration and the cooling system. So I started by adding a piece of rubber hosing to the barbed T. I used 2 clamps on each connector, probably a little bit of overkill, but I don't know, just to be safe, I decided to add 2 per connection. So here's a bit of the rubber hose here. Here's the T. So it's going to go onto the accessory for the drain attachment and screw on like that. So here's the drain tap that I picked up. I just kind of rooted through the different parts at Home Depot to get this. So I'm just going to attach the rubber hose that I put onto the T onto the barbed connector that I've added onto the tap. So this is one reason why I decided to go with just the rubber hosing and the barbed connectors. It's really simple. It's probably not as strong as going with like PVC where you glue and cement it. There you go, you stick it on, it's pretty simple to do. You just gotta make sure you twist it right in and get it as close to the edge as you can. So there you go, there's the connected tap to the T on the water outflow. The next step is to run this side through the pump, filter, chiller, and then ozone, and then back into the container. Let's do it. Okay, here's what I have so far. You can see I have the exit from the drain hole with the option of using the tap. And then I've plumbed up the other side over to the pump and then up to the filter. The next step is to put the chiller in place and run the hose from the filter to the chiller. Now I've got the pump running into the filter and into the cooler. And next is running the chiller into the ozone system. This is my take on the ozone sanitation system. So what it does is the water comes in here and then it splits off. So it has a 1/2 inch tube coming down here because the Venturi injector actually squeezes the water down to a 1/4 inch to suck in the ozone. What this does running it in parallel is it allows you to keep the same flow, but still having enough suction going through the Venturi. Here's the actual ozone generator, and you basically just add the tube to the top of the venturi, and the suction from the water basically brings the ozone in. A lot of people actually do this, adding it in parallel with the filter. I actually wanted to add the ozone last before going into the container. You really only need to run the generator about an hour a day, so I'm going to add this to a timed outlet. That's plenty of time to keep the water sanitized. Here's one final look at the final step. I have the ozone generator put in and attached to the venturi system and plumb that back into the water inflow. So all I gotta do is plug it in, fill it up, and we're ready to go. And here's what that sink strainer looks like that I put in to stop bigger items from getting sucked into the plumbing system. I'm just about to fill up the container, and as I do, I'm gonna use this hose filter to make sure that the water that goes in is as clean as it can be. The container's full and everything seems to be running as expected. No leaks, everything looks good. And the last thing I did was wrap the hoses with insulation, just to prevent condensation and keep the water running through the system as cool as possible.
And there you have it, the dopamine boosting, inflammation reducing cold plunge. I go in for 4 minutes at a time and I set my temperature to 7 degrees.
Embrace the shrinkage.
I